Good morning, everyone. This is the January Missouri Evergreen Circulation Committee meeting. My name is Meredith McCarthy. I'm with the Jefferson County Library, and I am
going. Supposed to be at a meeting at 11. I probably do.
and somebody has a live mic, just to let you know.
You're one in two places.
And it looks like we got a couple more people joining, so we'll get them in. And we'll go ahead and get started. Hopefully you guys can all see the agenda there. I do see that our new executive director, Mickey, is on the call. So I apologize for not getting you on the agenda, but I want to give you the opportunity to introduce yourself if you're okay with that.
I won't be answering. When Gail comes back.
Hi, everybody. Thanks very much, Meredith. I appreciate the opportunity to be face-to-face with everybody. I think most of you know me from my 2-year tenure at MALA, Mid-America Library Alliance, when I was managing the statewide courier system. That's such an important part of our evergreen delivery process in the catalog. Now that I'm in the evergreen seat, I think my job is switched over to advocating for our membership and making sure that we get the kind of service and the kind of support that we need to really flourish. So I'm delighted that the Circulation Committee is meeting regularly, as there are a number of important issues I think that we need to tackle here with Evergreen. And so it's great to have an opportunity to see everybody, and thanks for including me.
Thanks.
Definitely, and we promise not to inundate you with the courier situation. So we will go ahead and take things forward, and thank you, Mickey, for joining us. And Mickey, if you can drop your contact information in the chat, that way people have that great way to contact you as needed.
Will do.
Okay, please be mindful if you have a live mic, we can all hear your background noise as well. Thank you.
Jason needs me.
I
need to.
I'm going to start muting people. So if you try to speak and you can't speak, I muted you because we could hear your background. So let's go ahead and go on to new business. Diane, if you want to go ahead and touch base on the patron permissions, I'll bring up the email that you sent out with the information.
Okay. Yes. In the last membership meeting, the membership approved the addition of a new patron permission group, fine free. So if there's a group of patrons that you don't want to have overdue fines or I guess even lost or damaged items, you could not find them. This came up, a library wanted to not charge their senior citizens. So that's why that permission group was added. Yes, and streamlining the permissions that we already have now. You see, we have 19 permission groups. And it is possible. I'm a very much a simplification kind of person. So this looks to be like it can't be possible that all these different groups have different permissions, but I guess it is possible. So I wrote to the directors and the circulation contact people yesterday and sent out a link to a new video that's on the Missouri Evergreen YouTube channel, explaining the difference between permission groups and statistical categories, because I'm sure there are people that are using libraries that are using permission groups as for statistics, which, you know, that's not out in left field, but permissions are used to grant permissions. That's what I always tell the staff here when I'm training them. Permissions means permissions. This group has a permission to use the library in such and such a way, and this other group has a permission to use the library in a different way. So if you want to grant different permissions to people, then you use permission groups. But if you just want to run statistics, how many non-residents do we have? How many reciprocal borrowers do we have, and which libraries do they come from? At least at Scenic, reciprocal borrowers, non-residents have the same permission that all the rest of our patrons do. So we only need one permission group for those people. We use statistical categories to find statistics. So I've gone down the large rabbit hole of finding out from 60 libraries how they are using permission groups. I sent the email saying we're going to send out a survey asking that, just exactly that, and giving this information that's in this email here. And then I'm following up with sending each individual library their current breakdown of permission groups. You have 5,000 patrons, you have 300 non-residents, and sending them that report so they can look at the report of what their permissions groups they're using. And I'm putting a sentence in there, if these people have the same permissions, you could be using a statistical category, and a survey is going to follow, just so that libraries start thinking about the difference between permission groups and statistical categories, so that they're ready for this survey when we send it out. And then when we get the survey, we can see what permission groups we might be able to get rid of. Like, we have students and we have county students. Is there a library that's actually using them 2 different ways? And if there isn't, we can eliminate at least one of those and maybe just have a student category. If there are libraries that have students that have a different permission from patrons, then I know it's going to be a huge deal for Equinox if we say we've got 19 permissions, we only actually need 10. There's some we can eliminate completely. There are some that we can merge, and then we're going to have 60 libraries using all these permission groups, and we're going to have to figure out how to merge them. Or ask the libraries to please change the permission groups, because you can do that with a user bucket. You can put all these patrons into a user bucket and just change them all at once. So that'll be a job for Equinox, a job for us educating other libraries how to use patron buckets to make batch changes. But we're in the information gathering stage now.
Diane, I was hoping to mention this during the public comments section, but I think we skipped over that about what you're talking about right now, but
that's okay. Jump right in.
okay.
Yeah, we're not super formal. I apologize. I put Mickey
That's
in there
okay.
and I forgot to ask for more.
That's okay. We know that we should be using StatCats now that you have brought this into our attention. However, I think we must have migrated before they existed, and we don't know what we're doing. And I guess I didn't get that email, which may have to do with changing my last name. I may need to make sure I'm updated on all the listservs and things. But our biggest problem has been we use non-resident, and we need an obvious way for our part-time Circ staff to see that a patron is non-resident, or we lose out on revenue when we renew library cards, because we charge people that live out of the city, and we count on that as part of our budget. And so can I ask you, do the StatCats, are they obvious in the like patron edit screen? I know I need to watch that video and learn how to use them and all that. But it's one of those, like, I'm also the cataloger, also the acquisitions.
Yes.
So I'll get right on that.
Yeah, the patron StatCat is would be the last thing on the registration page.
Okay.
So, and it's also in the left bar of the patron's account, but it's way down at the bottom. So it's not the first thing you see is the permission group, of course. So it would say patrons up there, and non-resident would be way down at the bottom. And when the account is renewed, then the staff would have to go way down to the bottom to make sure. And they don't have a different address. Do you have a city library?
We do have a city library. And so we have to actually look up patrons' addresses when they sign up for cards. And then sometimes if there's a case where they own city property but don't live there, they have to bring in their property tax, which it's just the way we've always been set up, and it's how we get our funding, which actually the outside of the city limits people get a good deal, because it's like $20 a year for the whole family.
Oh my.
But I know.
That's great. Well,
yeah.
you could put an alert on these accounts too that just says non-resident. So every time the account comes up, it would say non-resident in red under the name.
Can you do that with a in a bucket, like a patron bucket? I see Mickey nodding yes.
I don't know if you could add an alert in a patron bucket.
Because that would be a lot of patron alerts, which I mean, I guess we could just do it as they renew. Like if we scroll down to the bottom and see that they have a non-res stat cat, then we could then add the alert.
And it might turn out based on,
Oops,
You
might-
muted.
There you go.
sorry, it might turn out as the basis of this discussion that non-resident is a category that needs to live based on those concerns. If that is a majority of libraries with it too, it's by no means do they all need to go away? We just need to justify why they're there, and
Right.
things can transition.
Well,
And I
and
don't
I'm
know how big of a deal it would be either to ask Equinox if we could move that order up so that information was higher up or whatever too.
Sure.
That's possibly an option, I would imagine.
because I'm all for training. I just, I'm all for streamlining is what I meant to say. I just want to make sure, because we've had some, even back in the Mobius days, we had some issues where there was an accidental like issue with the non-resident, and then we missed out on a whole bunch of revenue. So we just are trying to protect that, but I promise I am gonna go watch that video, which hopefully I can get a hold of that email, or maybe I already have it and I forgot.
And the non-resident, of course, we all have non-residents, and we probably miss out on some of ours here at Scenic too when they get renewed because the staff doesn't notice it. But we've never used non-resident as a permission group. Occasionally, when I've got a half hour left in the day and I'm thinking, what can I do for a half hour? That's not a big project. I run a report of non-residents and send that out to the manager so that they can check each account to see if they actually paid their money in the last year.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
we use the non-resident one, and ours is set up to automatically bill on the expiration date. So there is value in that versus
Whoa.
stat.
Ooh, that would not
Whoa.
that would not go well with us, especially because people would not do it and then get turned over for collections.
Yeah, and we don't do collections, but it does automatically.
Oh.
Bill. So there is some value in that if that's an option people want to keep. But I think
Hey.
this shows the value of this discussion and making sure that everybody's input is heard.
I'm
Yes.
interested in learning more about that, Meredith, though. I wonder do you guys word the bill? Like, is it a document that you have worded to where it would be more like of a gentle nudge than a bill? More like
I
a,
think
hey,
ours
here's,
just basically is like a straight up, this is your non-resident fee. But yeah, I can check on that. And
okay, yeah, I would
yeah.
love to know more about that.
And is that triggered by the permission group then, Meredith?
I am not 1,000% sure. I know that it goes off of when their privilege expires, then the fee shows up on their account.
When the privilege
Oh,
expires.
so it just it's not like a paper bill, it just pops onto their bill screen.
You can have it be a paper bill if you send those kind of bills out. with
Sure.
it, yeah. Mm.
Well, I know, this is Leanne. I know whenever you do some settings, you can set an email to alert patrons when their cards are about to expire. So I imagine maybe you could just include a, draft of an email that says this is what your charges are for your non-resident at that point. Because you can edit what the emails that go out say.
And if there was a hook for non-resident, then there'd have to be a hook so that didn't go out to everybody.
Yeah, and I see it on the frontline side. I've got other people that do the infrastructure on the back end, so I can find out what those details are.
Okay, thank you.
And Diane, there wouldn't be any issue if I shared your video out when I share out the minutes, so that way it'll go to everybody at large.
No, that'd be fine.
Okay. Mhm.
And I wrote down on my notes here, options for non-residents, because that is a thing. If you're counting on staff looking at that in particular, for us, it's mostly different because the address will be obvious that they don't live in one of our communities. Some of our peripheral ones, though, might have like a Wright City address, but still live in Lincoln County and not Warren County. So
Yeah,
the staff
we have a lot of address issues where cities cross county lines, and we have part of it, and other people have part of it, and all sorts of good fun.
yeah.
We have ones where you could live on one side of the street and be in the city and the other side and be out. So it's tricky.
Yeah, and you do not want to lose that revenue, that's for sure.
No.
So there must be, well, we've even discussed several options for making it simple for staff to see that that's happening. So any other questions about this? It's going to, I had to tell myself yesterday that, this is going to take a while, Diane. I like to get things done, and this is going to be a project to work on.
Yeah, I'm not seeing any more questions. And thank you, Diane, very much for taking on this windmill for us. It is very much appreciated. And there'll be plenty of opportunities for input, like we said, and making sure that everybody's voice gets heard for how we take this forward. Okay, and then going back to the agenda. It did come up in email communications, and my library is one of the ones that is having this issue. Some of us have special collections items that are too big, too bulky, too expensive to move through the courier system. So we don't want them fulfilling holds for other libraries. They are triggering holds, and we're trying to isolate where those issues are occurring. My suspicion here for us at Jefferson County is we had things in one spot pre-pandemic, and then we took them out of circulation. And then in the current status of pandemic, we're putting some of them back, but they're not living in the same home location. So I think we've broken those connections that make the Circ rules behave properly. So we're trying to get those squared away. So if it is our stuff, we're in progress trying to get there. But I just wanted to bring that to everyone's attention. If you do find your items that are moving that are not intentional, some of those Circ rules may have been broken if you've moved locations in item types.
We had some of our things want to go someplace weird too.
Yeah, and that's what my suspicion is. That's the problem, but there may be something else with an update or something along the way that's making things want to wander.
Yeah, and staff freak out, contact me and say, we've got a telescope that wants to go to Barry Lawrence. Is that okay? No.
Yeah,
right,
so
yeah, Diane, I know we've kind of narrowed it down. It seems like there's certain patrons that are like trying to do all these unique things, and because it's not being blocked, it's letting them place the holds, and it's kind of hard, even though you try to have a conversation with the patron, what do you do when it's letting them?
Yeah, and Krista's asking, isn't there a holdable, non-holdable button? And that's part of it. Something has to be holdable, but it can only be holdable in your district. And that's way down more than information than I know as a non-cataloger.
Right, Diane, I know when we worked with our hotspots, we had to work with Equinox, and I think it was through the item type, we created like an equipment type that was holdable within our area, because we did want our patrons to hold it, but they set boundaries so that they would not go out of our home library system.
Yeah, and Ron noted that he had some that were blocked under Mobius that are still trying to move now too. So if we're working on trying to isolate what those issues are, if anybody does discover where those issues are, and something to go ahead and share with the group at large or whatever too, so we can benefit from each other's experience, and just to be patient with all of us that we're not intentionally letting them wander. We're trying our best to corral them. Okay, and then going on forward, we had a working group that was working on damaged items best practices, and we came up with a guidelines draft that I'm going to go ahead and share with you guys now. This kind of came out of a directive from the board at large. There were some discrepancies between member libraries for billing status, and that had been brought forward to the board. So they requested that we go ahead and write up some guidelines that might be able to assist in those communications and move the conversation forward. So let me go ahead and bring that up. So in order to create said guidelines, we would need to make an adjustment to the evergreen circulation policy. It's just a one word in this lost and damaged section. Previously, it did not have the red text. It just had lost and damaged items are billed in accordance with the policies of the owning library, and that was the end of the sentence. So what we're proposing is adding lost and damaged items are billed in accordance with the policies of the owning library and the Missouri Evergreen Damaged Items Best Practices Guidelines. And you probably want to see what those guidelines are. So what we have come up with our draft document that we wanted to put out there and put out there for input is just fairly simple. To put guidelines that borrowers are not charged for normal wear and tear on library materials, but the following conditions do not constitute normal wear and tear, and they may result in repair or replacement charges. Not everybody library will charge for these things, and of course that's their call. And so we have wet or moldy materials with a lovely example. Materials damaged by food or chemicals that have an oily or sticky residue with a very gross example. Materials missing pages or covers. Materials marked by pencil, ink, highlight marker. Materials showing tears, cuts, graffiti, or other unusual damage. Materials showing insect or animal damage, Garfield ate Garfield. Broken or missing equipment. We do have some examples of normal wear and tear that may include, it's not definitive at all. Books falling from the spine or loose pages, frayed edges, tears on the spine, magazine back cover, insert missing, torn plastic covers, or smudges. So by all means, we're not trying to pin down everything to the detail, but just kind of give a framework for that discussion that's happening between libraries. So I will hush and leave it open for input.
I love it. I love it that it shows the extreme examples, that this is what we expect to be charged for. Not because somebody's got a little dirt stain from their thumb on a page.
Carol has a question in the chat. If we have an item we want to continue to circulate but has normal wear and tear, should we note that on the inside of the cover of the item? That's a library to library decision. With it, we do that internally here at Jefferson County Library, but not every library does that. Don't mark on one, of course, it doesn't belong to you, but whatever you choose to do for your internal markings, of course, is up to you. But that does kind of help people know that it was already there, which that's why we do it and find it useful.
I've also seen some libraries that actually attach in some way a Missouri item condition report slip that just kind of stays in the book, saying they know that it was that way before they even sent it, and it's attached in the item.
Yeah, that's a good practice as well. Okay, so if we don't have further discussion, then I would entertain a motion to take the proposed policy change and the guidelines forward to the board for their consideration.
I'll make that motion.
That was Belinda?
Yep.
Okay, cool.
And I'll second, it's Diane.
Okay. Diane seconded. Okay, and all in favor? You can raise your
Aye.
hand or put their eye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carried. Thank you very much to the working group team and everyone, and we'll take that forward to the board and get their feedback as well. And then I believe since it's a policy wording change, it has to go to the membership meeting at large.
Thank you all for working on.
Yeah, it's one of those things that seemed more daunting until we tackled it. And once we tackled it, it got a little more concrete and was easier to do. Okay, and then I just left staff permissions on there as a placeholder. We've diverted Diane onto patron permissions, so we will just leave that as a placeholder for future discussion. And we do still have an opening for an additional member of the committee. So if yourself sees a role for yourself on this committee and want to be considered for that, please feel free to shoot me an email. If you have someone that you'd like to recommend, you can send me that as well. So we would appreciate another member to help us fill out the team. And now we're down to the other. So if anybody has anything they want to bring forward to the group at large, now is the time. And while we have anybody's discussion there, I'm going to look up our next date that I have forgotten for when we're meeting next.
I can tell from the listserv that some libraries are being faithful, reporting their problems to Mala. We continue to encourage everyone that every time something isn't right to to report that. Rolla, that just recently joined the consortium, is having big problems, and they are being faithful reporting it. And the onboarding committee is discussing making it part of the onboarding process to notify Mala. I know we're not supposed to communicate with Henry ourselves, so I guess we can't do that, but we need to let them know that there's the library coming on board and their delivery is going to be larger than it used to be. Please prepare for that. Instead of Rolla they have 2 days delivery, and I was talking to them last week and they hadn't gotten anything either day. That is just not right, of course. So please be faithful in reporting all your problems, courier problems, not all your problems. They don't want to hear about your dog and anything else, but make sure you report your courier problems every time. Don't get tired of doing that.
And we do have a question in the chat about being limited by not having bags and things for transit. And so they're to the point where they're limiting their holds that are going out of their building because they don't have bags for transit. So do we have suggestions for helping people beyond I've got lots of bags, do you need them emailed?
Boxes.
Yeah, please contact Mala if you have an overflow boxes, or just send them to Mala and they will get them out. If you need bags, please contact Mala and say, send me some bags. They'll be out promptly. And again, what Diane said, if you have boxes, if you have a number of materials, the key thing is that label, the Mala label. If that label can go on a box, you can send your materials out. That's perfectly acceptable. It does not have to be in a red courier bag.
That's great information. And then we also have another question of, should we notify the Circ listserv when we know our transit is delayed by several days? My gut is yes, so people don't think things are just totally in the wind. I'm always on the side of more information is never bad.
And here we are begging libraries to monitor their transit lists and keep those lists cleaned up. And then we know that stuff is just stuck somewhere.
Exactly. Hanging out in the ether. Okay, I think we got the questions on chat. And we do, can we run a refresh on how to contact Mala? There is the link on the Evergreen Libraries page, and those who do that reporting can tell more information than I who do not.
I do it. It's a super easy form. You just click on the link and put your name, your library's name, choose from the drop down what the problem is, and then describe it. I do it probably 3 times a week. It's super easy.
Yeah, this is the overall Evergreen website, the moevergreenlibraries.org. And the Mala thing is on here somewhere. I have so many windows.
Oh, it's right there on the right.
Okay.
Experiencing courier issues. This is how important this has become to us, that it's front center on page 1.
I have so many windows open with the Zoom that I'm like, where is it?
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, and you can click here to report, and then this is the reporting form here. And then that will get it promptly to Mala's attention, and they'll be able to know the situation and be in touch with you on how to resolve it. Okay, yes, and Krista put out a very awesome reminder as well to use the newest labels on the Mala website. We have issues with libraries continuing to use the old labels, and it's creating issues with designation changes between libraries. So her particular situation is Marshfield versus the Rogersville locations for her. And Mickey did share that Linda Tarantino is the courier coordinator at Mala. Please contact Linda directly if you have concerns beyond the reporting form, but always fill out that online form. Okay. Going back to the agenda. So if anybody doesn't have anything else to go forward with, I'll go ahead and adjourn the meeting. We had a nice tight half hour, but I think we got an awful lot accomplished. And our next meeting is scheduled for February 22nd at 11 a.m. Thank you, everyone, for your time today.
Hey, Meredith,
Oh, sure, go
just
ahead.
FYI, I am going to be in sunny Miami next month, so
Oh, wow.
will not be zooming in, let me tell you, so,
Completely understandable. Thank
yes.
you. Awesome. I'm gonna go ahead and stop the recording and send you guys free out into the world. Have a
Thank
good
you,
day.
Meredith. Have a good day.
You too. Bye.